we do, we pad this up with boxes. Amos House gave out the jackets that turned into sleeping bags, so they helped out a lot. Because if you didn't have someone that gave you a blanket, you will be really, really cold.
Thank you for watching our video. My name is Hirsch. I'm a professor and chair of the Department of Sociology at Providence College. For decades, I've worked to try to end homelessness in Rhode Island as a researcher, program evaluator, and advocate. We realize that many times when there's a crisis in our world, those of us who are trying to end homelessness, many people don't know about it. And this video is being offered so that you understand a little bit about the current crisis that we're facing. There are more and more people living outside, unsheltered. We went from 51 in 2018 to 71 in 2019, 108 in January of this year. But now, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic crisis that it has caused, we counted 246 men, women, and children living outside in our state just this past month of November. At the same time, we're seeing an increase in the number of COVID positive residents of our shelters. There was only one case in August. There were none at all in September because of the great efforts of our shelter staff members. But unfortunately, in October and November, we've had 39 cases. So both for public health reasons and because no one should be living outside in the winter, we are going to introduce you to outreach workers and people who are experiencing homelessness outside. And we're going to start with PJ and Brandi. PJ is an outreach worker at Amos House and is someone who works with Brandi.
Hi, I'm Brandi Landry, and I have been homeless for on and off for 31 years, and I am currently staying at the Amos House shelter.
When COVID kind of first arose, kind of last winter, what was your current living situation then?
I was here at this Amos House shelter.
The winter shelter?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Before the winter shelter opened, where were you staying?
I was out on the street.
And then once the winter shelter kind of transitioned to hotels, you were housed there, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
For about 3 months, I think it was.
And then what was your living situation upon leaving the hotel?
I was housed in a, permanent supportive housing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not a situation that I felt comfortable in.
Okay.
I had to go and live with roommates because there really was no other choice for me at that moment. It was either do that or go back out onto the street. And so I took the situation because it was an emergency situation and it just didn't work out.
How would you say, so homelessness in itself, of course, it's traumatic, it's a terrible experience. How would you say COVID impacted that even more so?
Well, it makes it harder for everything. It really does, like where to get something to eat or where to get clothes or where to use the bathroom, especially for somebody out on the street.
So I know from working the winter shelter last year, there was a point in time where there was no shower access. There was no, open door access at several businesses that people frequently use. So what was it like being in shelter and on the streets during that time?
It was not easy, especially since there weren't a lot of shelters. That's a big problem. We don't have enough shelters.
And so you spoke about leaving the hotel to go to a group living. Did you feel like that was kind of like your only option, or what made you decide to say okay to it?
Well, I had other options, but other options weren't for me. Like to go into a sober living situation. Why would I want to go into a sober living situation if I don't have a problem with my sobriety? Do you know what I mean? And that would have been setting me up for failure anyways. So it was either that or take the other option.
And do you feel that you had a lack of resources in terms of options to choose? Do you feel like there were enough options open to you or no?
No, there were definitely not enough options open to me because, you know, I'm in my mid 40s and I should be living on my own. I should have housing. I've been homeless on and off for 31 years and I have never had housing. And that's not right.
Where do you think that the funding and the resources need to go as someone who is directly on the other end of receiving them?
Well, it needs to start off with more shelters to help people to know who the people are that need the help. You know, just like here, you know, when that happened, you know, you guys had whatever resources you had and you did what you could with it, you know, but you wouldn't know that I need help if I wasn't here. And there isn't a lot of places for people to go to get help, to be allowed to have those resources. And then when we do go, they don't have enough resources. So it's not, and you would think Rhode Island is the smallest state. You can barely see it on the map. And we have so many homeless people that I don't know. It's crazy.
So how my jobs you said changed during COVID? So it drastically changed because, you know, when the pandemic began to arise, at the time I was also working at our St. Paul's winter shelter, which we used to run in Pawtucket. We lost that. We had to close it at the end of April, right in the midst of the rising cases. That alone right there gave up 20 beds to people we would normally house in the Pawtucket area. So that was a drastic change. And then also I had to temporarily kind of pull back from our street outreach, just as a safety concern for my peer outreach workers. You know, them along with myself, we had medical conditions. I have children at home, so we weren't able to be there and hit the ground as we needed. As things kind of got a little bit settled and the shelter moved to the hotel, we were then again able to re-engage kind of in a safer area and kind of work to get those individuals that were at the shelter housed. And Brandi was one of those individuals. I would say the toughest thing has just been the resources. I mean, it is so difficult to meet an individual on the street and not be able to tell them that I can definitely give them a place to sleep tonight. You know, they come out and they're engaged and they'll be ready to talk, and you know, and sometimes they just need somewhere to rest their head for the night. And sometimes, a lot of times, especially when COVID, in the midst of COVID and, you know, the shift to the hotels, I couldn't tell them that, you know, and like Brandi talked about, there's, you know, this curfew and there's this shelter in place and stay home and quarantine. But how do you do that when your home is the streets? Or how do you do that when you're living in a tent on the side of the highway or under the overpass? And then, you know, we have city officials removing people from under overpasses and embankments and, you know, sometimes being charged criminally because they're trying to find a place to safely lay their head.
Thank you so much for that testimony, PJ and Brandi. Now we'll hear from Sara, who's an outreach worker at the House of Hope, and Cowboy, who is another person living outside, unfortunately.
Hi, how you doing? Out in the streets, they call me Cowboy. You know, I've been homeless off and on 5 years. Being out here in the streets is really rough, but it's even rougher with the COVID because there's a lot of things that we can't do no more. We can't go in some of the public buildings. It's hard for us to use the bathroom and use the facilities to clean ourselves and stuff. So it's really rough out here, you know. And Rhode Island being a small state, you know, there's a lot of millionaires here, there's a lot of money that coming through the system. I don't think that the people are using it to the right reasons and for the right homelessness and, I mean, job opportunities. I mean, I'm a steel worker, I'm a blacksmith. Due to programs like Crossroads and Amos House, you know, House of Hope, you know, we need more programs to help the people that really needs it. And there's a lot of mental health out there, a lot of mental health. A lot of people is not on medication, they can't afford it. They're afraid to go to the hospitals because they don't have insurance. So there's a lot of needs out here. I'm just one of the persons that just slip through the cracks, you know. I'm self-educated. You know, I have many licenses, you know, I'm job ready to work, willing, but, you know, I'm just homeless, you know. A lot of programs not out there for us. You know, so we need more programs to help the homelessness. This spot is one of the spots where I hang out at night. I curl up in the corner and go to sleep. There's my box with my foods in here and stuff. You know, this area sometimes gets a little crowded because people know that this is a spot that is very secluded. You can see me, but it's not. I'm protected from the wind, protected from the rain a little bit, you know, but you know, it's rough out here. This is my friend right here, Sara.
Sara, do you want to introduce yourself?
I also hope one of the people that try to look outside from what we're looking on the inside. Try to see how she can walk a mile in our shoes. Because she's in a different position right now, but she's trying to help. And she's very welcome on the street. Everyone knows her and love her. You know, she's very caring and true to her job. Volunteering or paid or not, I know she do it from her heart.
When I was out here in March, in the beginning of when COVID sort of first landed here, one of the things I talked to a lot of folks about was how COVID was all of a sudden being treated like a crisis, like that the whole world was experiencing, but homelessness is already a crisis, and no one was reacting with crisis level measures then, but once it was something that impacted everyone, you know, it started getting treated that way, and so the reverse is also true, that I think, you know, a lot of our folks are saying, and it's so true, like COVID's not at the top of my priority list. It's not the thing that's most likely to kill me, you know. I've been at risk far longer than COVID's been around. And so I guess it's given me pause to reflect too on the reality that, you know, at the same time, this isn't the great equalizer, because while it's easy to think, you know, this is a virus that impacts everybody, like we were saying earlier, you know, the directions we got at the beginning, stay at home, wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart, all this stuff doesn't work when you don't have a place to stay, when you don't have a bathroom, and when shelter beds are 3 feet apart. And so it still privileges people who have a home. And so we started this not on a level playing field, and it's still not a level playing field. I think there's an assumption everywhere, right, that if you're homeless, there's always some shelter you could go to get in for the night. You could always go somewhere if you really wanted to, and that's just not true.
That's not true.
It's so far from the truth. I mean, particularly right now, I mean, COVID caused just about every shelter to have to cut down on how many beds they had, so that people could be spaced out.
And
there's no pushing past that limit now. Limit's the limit. And so there are, you know, normally at this time of year, we know of about 150-ish people staying outside. Right?
year ago, I had a job, I had a girlfriend, I had a place to stay. And my Christmas wasn't that well. Last year, my Christmas, I sat at the bus stop and had the best Christmas ever. A little kid rolled by in a car and wanted to give their Christmas gift to someone homeless. It brought tears to my eyes because I was like, wow, this child was thinking about someone else better than, that was doing worse off than them because they have a home and they have a mom and a dad. My mom's dead and my dad's dead. I feel like I have no one but family, but, it made me feel good as a person that someone else was thinking about. And I didn't have nothing and had the best Christmas.
Thank you so much, Sara and Cowboy, for talking about your experiences. What do we need to do? We certainly are in need of additional beds, shelter beds, hotel beds, and we're happy to say that the state has stepped up and has provided a hotel, has reopened a hotel for people experiencing homelessness, and also hotel vouchers for the men, women, and children who are outside, and particularly for people who are medically vulnerable. They've also provided funding for supportive services and case management to try to get people into permanent housing. That's certainly crucial. We do need to ensure that any place that's provided for homeless people also provides for their health and safety. So we definitely want to affirm the importance of doing that. And we want to say that it would be great for the state to try to find the funds to fund innovative programs like constructing tiny houses for emergency shelter for people dealing with the COVID crisis. And we hope that the state will be able to do that. Rhode Island as a whole has not really stepped up to the plate with regard to permanent housing. We only spend about $6 per person on housing versus over $100 per person in Massachusetts and Connecticut. We need the General Assembly to act now to deal with this public health and serious housing crisis. We need a housing bond on the ballot. It'll take a special election to fund the construction of low-income housing. We need to avoid any budget cuts to any existing housing programs. We need to provide a state budget line item for rental subsidies and supportive services. We need to pass a law banning discrimination based on how tenants pay their rent, what their source of income is in order to pay their rent. And we need to ensure that there are no evictions until the pandemic ends and no foreclosures of small landlords. Those are the things that are really important. And we hope that all of you who have watched this video will call or email your state representative and senator, as well as Speaker-elect Shekarchi and Senate President Ruggiero, to ask them to support all of these initiatives. Thank you so much for watching, and we're hoping that you join in our struggle to end homelessness.
And how they say that music soothes the savage beats, this brings me into a whole nother world that I'm not in right now. Another time, another place. We all can imagine, we all can dream. The cowboy knows. Life is what you bring it. Life is what you make it. You can be sad, but I do something every day. I take a minute to smile, and I think about something pleasant. Because when you smile, the muscles in your body say, he must be feeling happy. So it gives you a happy energy in a happy way. And I breathe, and I think about something nice to bring me into a better place than where I'm at.